Aria Bennett saved the life of a Mafia boss's paralyzed son without knowing who the boy was or what world she was stepping into. What Dominic Moretti did next would pull her from the ashes of her own tragedy and into a war she never asked to fight. November rain hammered the streets of Philadelphia like bullets against concrete, neon signs bleeding red and blue across wet pavement, umbrellas turned inside out and useless against the cold, relentless storm. Aria knelt in the mansion's garden at dusk, rain soaking through her black and white maid uniform, cradling 7-year-old Noah Moretti as his small body convulsed during a seizure. His wheelchair lay tipped on its side in the mud. The metallic taste of panic flooded her mouth. She turned him onto his side, cleared his airway with trembling fingers, remembered the CPR training from her old restaurant job 3 years ago. She counted aloud. 43. 44. 45 seconds. His breathing steadied. Rain mixed with tears on her face. She did not know armed guards were watching from the mansion windows. She did not know Carlo and Nino were already radioing the boss. She did not know this boy was the only son of the most dangerous man in Philadelphia. What she did not know was that Vincent Moretti, Dominic's spoiled nephew and rival capo, was watching from the shadows of the garden wall, already calculating how to use this moment to destroy his uncle's empire. Before we continue, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming tomorrow. Now let us go back to the beginning, to the day Aria Bennett stood in the ashes holding only a photograph and $78 to her name. 3 days earlier, Aria stood in the charred remains of her apartment building on Marshall Street. The fire had taken everything. Her daughter's toys. Her son's school uniforms. The small kitchen where she had learned to cook from her mother's handwritten recipe cards. Nothing remained but the smell of burned plastic and wet ash. She held one photograph. Just one. Her children at ages 5 and 3, both smiling in front of a Christmas tree that had cost her $23 at a clearance store. The photograph was warped at the edges from smoke, but their faces were clear. She pressed it against her chest. In her pocket, $78. This was everything. The landlord's voice still echoed in her ears from that morning. Insurance covers the building structure, not your personal items. You have until Monday to vacate the premises. I'm sorry, miss. He was not sorry. His shoulders had not tensed with sympathy. His eyes had not held hers. $78 would cover 3 nights in a shelter. Maybe 4 if she skipped meals. After that, she and her children, Maya, 5 years old, and Lucas, 3, would sleep in her Honda Civic, parked behind the Save-A-Lot on 5th Street where the security cameras had blind spots. The foreclosure notice on her kitchen table, dated 6 weeks earlier, was still tucked in her purse. $47,000. That was the debt on the house her mother had left her. Medical bills from the cancer treatment had consumed the savings. The mortgage had gone unpaid for 4 months. The bank had been patient, then efficient, then cruel in the detached corporate way. The notice was crumpled now, worn from her touching it, reading it, unable to believe it. She needed money. Immediate money. The kind of money that appeared in next week's paycheck, not next year's lottery. That was when she saw the advertisement on the community board at the food bank. Domestic help needed. Overnight cleaning. Discretion required. $800 per week. References not necessary. A phone number. No name. She called at 4:08 in the morning from a bathroom stall at the hospital where she had worked the previous night as a temporary cleaner, wiping down emergency room floors while her daughter slept in the car in the parking lot. A woman answered on the second ring. Her voice was clipped, efficient, without warmth. What is your name? Aria Bennett. Experience. I've worked restaurant service, hotel housekeeping, and medical facility cleaning. A pause. Can you work nights? Monday through Friday. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Yes. Can you be invisible? Can you work in a home without being seen, without being remembered, without speaking unless spoken to? Aria understood this question. She had made herself invisible for a long time. It was the only way to survive when you were nothing. Yes, she said again. The Moretti Mansion. Chestnut Hill. Your first shift is tomorrow night. I will text you the address and gate code. Do not arrive early. Do not arrive late. Do not speak to anyone about where you work or whom you work for. The line went dead. Aria sat on the bathroom floor tiles, still wet from her cleaning, and allowed herself to breathe. $800 per week meant $3,200 per month. She could rent a small apartment. She could buy groceries. She could buy her children new shoes because Lucas's were splitting at the seams and his small toe was visible through the gap. She did not know that the Moretti name meant anything. She did not know that in Philadelphia, it meant power. It meant money that moved through the city like blood through veins, sustaining the entire body. She did not know that Dominic Moretti was 52 years old, had never lost a business negotiation, and had not allowed himself to feel anything but anger and obligation for the last 15 years. She did not know any of this. Monday night arrived cold and thin, the kind of November evening where the air tastes like metal and your lungs hurt when you breathe. Aria drove her Honda past iron gates, past the security guardhouse where a man in a dark suit watched her without expression, up a driveway lined with Italian cypress trees that stretched toward the sky like dark prayers. The Moretti mansion sat at the end of the drive. 3 stories. Limestone facade. Windows that glowed warm gold against the night. A fountain in the center of the circular driveway, its water still and dark, reflecting nothing. A side door opened before she could knock. A woman in her 60s, wearing a navy dress and gold cross, gestured her inside. You are the new cleaning staff. Yes. I'm Aria. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not enter the main living areas unless the family is asleep. Do not answer the telephone. Do not make eye contact with Mr. Moretti or the young master. You clean the East Wing bathrooms, the kitchen, and the service corridors. You are here for hours per night. You leave before 6 a.m. You will be paid in cash every Friday. Do you understand? Yes. I understand. The woman, whose name Aria never learned, showed her the utility closet, the cleaning supplies, the layout of the mansion. Then she disappeared, and Aria was alone in a building larger than any place she had ever lived, holding a mop that cost more than her monthly car insurance. For 3 nights, Aria was invisible. She cleaned bathrooms where the marble sink cost more than her entire vehicle. She swept kitchen tiles in a room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a garden lit by landscape lighting. She listened to the silence of wealth, the kind of silence that only existed when you never had to worry about making noise because noise meant nothing to you. On the 4th night, everything changed. She was working in the East Wing kitchen at 11:52 p.m. when she heard it. A sound like something falling. Then another sound. A child's voice, thin and terrified. Help! Please! Help! The voice came from the garden. Every instinct told her to keep working, to keep her head down, to remain invisible as instructed. She was nobody. She had no right to involve herself in this family's business. But the child's voice came again, breaking, desperate. Help me. Please. She dropped the mop. She ran. The garden door swung open into November darkness and rain. She found him near the fountain. Noah. 7 years old. His wheelchair overturned in the mud, his small body rigid and convulsing on the cold ground. His eyes were rolling back. His lips were tinged grey. A seizure. She had seen one once, at the restaurant. A customer. She had watched the waiters panic while the woman's body shook and her breath came in strangled gasps. Aria dropped to her knees. Rain soaked through her uniform. She rolled Noah onto his side, cleared the moisture from his mouth with her fingers, held him steady as his body fought against itself. She counted. 43 seconds. 44. 45. His breath came back. His eyes focused. He looked at her. "You are okay," she whispered. "You are okay. I am here. I am right here." She did not know that Carlo and Nino were watching from the library windows, their hands moving toward their weapons before recognition stopped them. A maid. Just a maid. But why was she touching the young master? She did not know that Dominic Moretti, in his study on the third floor, had just received news that a rival operation had made a move against his territory. He had been about to order a response. He had been holding the phone, his voice steady with the kind of authority that made men obey without question. But then the alarms changed. A child. Medical emergency. Garden. He was moving before the thought completed in his mind. Down 2 flights of stairs. Through the kitchen. Into the rain. He emerged into the garden and saw her. A woman in a maid's uniform, drenched and trembling, cradling his son as if Noah were her own child. As if the fear on her face was real. As if she had forgotten to be afraid of him. Dominic Moretti had not allowed himself to see a woman in 7 years. Not to really see her. They existed in his world as decorations, as instruments of power or pleasure, as things to be moved around on his chessboard. But this woman, kneeling in the mud holding his son, was something else entirely. She looked up at him with eyes red from rain or tears or both. "He stopped breathing," she said. "But he is breathing now. He is okay. You need to call a doctor." "He needs." "I have a doctor," Dominic said. His voice came out hoarse. Unpracticed. "I have everything he needs." "He needs to be warm," Aria continued, still cradling Noah, as if the most powerful man in Philadelphia was not standing in front of her. "He needs dry clothes and warmth and someone to stay with him tonight. He should not be alone." Dominic looked at his son. At this boy who had been born with half his body dead, who had spent 7 years learning to exist in a prison of his own nervous system, who had never once asked why his father was so frequently gone, so frequently angry. Then he looked at the maid. And in that moment, something shifted. A blade of ice through his chest. A warning. A beginning. This is where we must pause, dear viewers, because what happens next will change both of their lives forever. Before the story continues, please drop a like and subscribe. Share this moment with someone you love. We will return to Aria and Dominic, and to the war that is already coming for them, in just one moment. 3 weeks before Aria Bennett would kneel in the mud and save a life, she stood in the charred skeleton of everything she owned. The apartment building at 447 Maple Street in North Philadelphia was nothing but a blackened frame now, its windows empty like dead eyes, its brick walls bleeding ash into the November dawn. Firefighters moved through the rubble behind her in their heavy yellow coats, their flashlights cutting through smoke that still hung thick in the air like a curse that could not be erased. Aria's hands trembled as she held the only thing the fire had spared, a photograph, warped and smoke-damaged but still recognizable. Maya and Lucas. Her daughter at age 6 with her father's chin. Her son at 4 with his mother's dark eyes. They were the only 2 things in the world that mattered, and they were gone. The apartment was gone. The clothes were gone. The toys, the books, the letters from her mother, the ring her grandmother had worn through 60 years of marriage. All of it consumed by the flames that had come in the middle of the night, spreading through the building like something alive, something hungry. She pulled the crumpled foreclosure notice from her jacket pocket. Her fingers, stained with ash and grief, smoothed it out. $47,000. That was the number. That was the weight crushing down on her chest. 7 days to pay it or lose the property permanently. The notice had arrived on a Tuesday. The fire had come on Thursday at 2:02 in the morning. She knew the time because that was when Lucas had screamed, when she had grabbed both children and run barefoot down the stairs, the heat pushing at her back like hands trying to keep her down. The city had put her and her children up in the Red Cross shelter for 3 nights. Cots with thin blankets. A kitchen that smelled like boiled vegetables and surrender. Maya and Lucas in borrowed clothes, their eyes hollow with the particular terror that comes when home burns. Lucas had asked her every morning, every single morning, "Mama, where do we sleep tonight?" And she had no answer. She had no job. She had no apartment. She had no future that she could see. She sat on the curb in front of the ruins and opened her wallet. $78. That was all she had left in the world. She counted it 3 times, her hand shaking so badly the bills nearly fell into the gutter. 3 times she counted because the number did not change, no matter how desperately she wanted it to. $78. 3 nights in a shelter cost $90. That meant 4 days, maybe 5 if she did not eat, if the children ate only 1 meal. Then the car. The 2003 Honda Civic parked 2 blocks away that she had paid off 3 years ago, the only thing she owned free and clear. She could sleep there. She could fit both children in the back seat if they curled up like they were still in the womb, protected, contained. She had read about families living in cars. It was becoming more common. There was an entire subreddit about it. The thought made her stomach collapse inward like a building imploding. She stood up, folded the photograph carefully, and tucked it back into her jacket pocket, close to her heart. The smell of burnt plastic and burnt dreams clung to her clothes. Her borrowed jacket, a blue windbreaker from the Red Cross donation bin, hung loose on her frame. She had lost weight. 7 pounds in the past month, the scales at the clinic had told her. 7 pounds of fear and sleeplessness and the particular exhaustion that comes from knowing you are failing the people who depend on you most. The job hunting began immediately. For restaurants, each one a small humiliation. The first manager looked at her resume and told her they were not hiring. The second said she was overqualified as a waitress but not qualified for anything else. The third said they had a hiring freeze. The fourth looked at her shoes, borrowed, too small, the left one with a crack in the heel, and said, "Come back next month." There was no next month. There was only now, and the now was disappearing. She was sitting in the public library on her 3rd day of searching when she found the posting. A single line on Craigslist, no photograph, minimal detail, overnight maid wanted. Discreet property. Cash payment. No questions asked. Experience required. Call for interview. She called. Her hands were shaking again. The woman who answered had a voice like knives, sharp and cutting. "You have references." "I worked at the Harbour View for 5 years before it closed," Aria said. "Housekeeping references." Aria's mouth went dry. She had never done housekeeping. She had waited tables. She had cleaned up other people's messes in the form of spilled wine and scattered breadcrumbs, but she had never actually cleaned a house. She was about to hang up when her daughter's face appeared in her mind. Maya, asking if they could get pizza for her birthday next month. Pizza cost $14. Yes, Aria said. Multiple households. Very experienced. The woman paused. In that pause, Aria held her breath. "Fine. Come tomorrow. 6 p.m. 3481, Rittenhouse Square." The address hit her like a physical blow. Rittenhouse Square. That was where the city's oldest money lived. That was where palaces were disguised as homes. She had never even walked down that street. She had only seen photographs in magazines abandoned on tables at the library. She hung up and realized her hands were steady for the first time in 3 days. The next morning, she borrowed clothes from the shelter. A black dress, a white cardigan. She found black shoes in the donation bin that almost fit. She combed her dark hair and pulled it back into a style her mother had taught her decades ago. In the shelter's bathroom mirror, she barely recognized herself. There was a woman looking back who was too thin, whose eyes were too old, whose shoulders carried a weight that had nothing to do with what she was holding. She was 27 years old and looked 40. The woman who answered the door at 3481 Rittenhouse Square was dressed in severe black, her grey hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to pull at her face. Her name was Eleanor, and she was the estate manager. She looked at Arya the way a person looks at a stain on a white tablecloth. You understand the discretion requirement? Eleanor asked, not inviting Arya into the foyer but keeping her on the doorstep. I do, Arya said. You clean from midnight to 6 in the morning. You touch nothing but dust. You see nothing. You speak to no one. You are invisible. Do you understand that? Invisible. Arya understood that better than most people. She had been invisible her entire life. Invisible to the drunk man who had raised her. Invisible to the social workers who decided she was resilient enough to handle things on her own. Invisible to every employer who looked through her instead of at her. Invisible was a familiar country. I understand, Arya said. The pay is $200 per night, cash, paid daily. You start tonight at midnight. Do not be late. $200 a night. $1,400 a week. That was enough. That was enough to eat. That was enough to keep her children somewhere other than a car, at least for a while. That was enough to breathe. I will not be late, Arya said. That night, at 11:55 p.m., she drove the Honda Civic to 3481 Rittenhouse Square and parked in the small staff lot behind the property. The mansion rose up in front of her like a dark thing, all Gothic stone and leaded windows. Lights glowed in some of the rooms, casting long rectangles across the manicured lawn. Somewhere inside those walls lived a family with wealth beyond anything she could comprehend. Somewhere inside lived a life that did not require the counting of dollars or the choosing between hunger and heat. Eleanor was waiting inside the service entrance. She handed Arya a black and white uniform, a dress that fit almost perfectly, an apron, sensible shoes. She showed her where to find the cleaning supplies. She pointed to the rooms that mattered and the hallways that didn't. She showed her where the master suite was, where she was never, under any circumstances, to go without explicit permission. And then Eleanor left, and Arya was alone in a mansion with 53 rooms. She began in the kitchen. The marble counters gleamed under the lights, but she polished them anyway, the cloth moving in circles under her hands, the lemon-scented polish filling the silence. The kitchen was larger than the apartment she had lost. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, the house settled and sighed around her. She climbed the main staircase, her sensible shoes quiet on the plush carpet. The banister was mahogany, dark and rich, and she polished each spindle until she could see her reflection in the wood. She was a ghost moving through someone else's dream. She was a phantom cleaning up after the living. She was invisible, exactly as she had been told to be. On the second floor, she passed a room with its door slightly ajar. Medical equipment glowed inside, monitors with small green lights, an oxygen tank, the dark shape of a wheelchair. Through the crack in the door, she could see a bed. Someone was sleeping in it. She did not know who. She did not need to know. She was invisible. She was not supposed to see. She passed that room 4 times during her 6-hour shift, and each time she heard the soft sound of breathing, measured and even, like a prayer that had no words. By the time the sun began to break over Philadelphia's skyline, painting the windows gold, Arya had cleaned every surface in the mansion except the master suite. Her feet ached. Her hands were raw. Her back screamed from leaning and stretching and reaching. But Eleanor was waiting at the service entrance with $200 in cash, and Arya took it with hands that had stopped trembling. Same time tomorrow night, Eleanor said. Do not disappoint me. I will not, Arya said. She drove to the grocery store as the city woke up around her. She bought milk, bread, peanut butter, cheese, eggs. Real food. Things her children could eat. Things that would keep them alive. She paid with a $20 bill and felt like she had won the lottery. At the shelter, Maya and Lucas were awake and waiting, as they always were. She fed them breakfast while they sat on her lap, and for the first time in 3 days, neither of them asked where they would sleep tonight. Tomorrow night, she would clean the mansion again. And the night after that. And the night after that. And slowly, incrementally, invisibly, she would build a bridge back to something that looked like survival. She did not know that in exactly 17 days, she would find a boy gasping for breath in the garden of that mansion. She did not know that her invisible hands would save a life. She did not know that saving that boy would set in motion a chain of events that would destroy everything she thought she understood about safety, about family, about what a person could survive. She only knew that it was dawn, and her children were safe, and for tonight, that was everything. The rain came down like a blade wrapped in ice. Aria Bennett knelt in the wet grass of the garden, her hands trembling as she cradled the boy's head. His body had stopped seizing 30 seconds ago, but his breathing was still ragged, still fighting, like a wounded animal dragging itself toward safety. She had timed it on her watch, 90 seconds from the moment she found him face down near the fountain until his body went rigid one final time. 90 seconds that had felt like hours stretched on a rack. "You are okay," she whispered, though she was not sure if she was speaking to Noah or to herself. "I have got you. Breathe with me. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. That is it. That is it." The boy's eyes fluttered open, dark brown, confused, drowning in disorientation. His lips moved but no words came. Only a whisper. Only a broken sound that might have been a name or a prayer. Aria had trained for this. Community college. 2 semesters of nursing assistant coursework before she ran out of money and dropped out. But training was classrooms with mannequins. This was a 17-year-old boy gasping for breath in the cold November rain while his wheelchair lay on its side 10 feet away, one wheel still spinning slowly, then stopping. She did not leave him. That was the thing. Later, when people asked her why she had not run inside for help, why she had not screamed for the armed men she knew were somewhere on this estate, she could not explain it. Only that something in her recognized something in him. The vulnerability. The helplessness. The way his body had betrayed him. She knew that look because she wore it every morning in the mirror. "My name is Aria," she said, keeping her voice steady like she was soothing a frightened child. "You had a seizure. But it is over now. You are safe." Noah's breathing began to slow. Color returned to his face like someone turning up a dimmer switch. He stared at her with confusion still clouding his eyes, and then something shifted. Recognition, maybe. Or just gratitude that someone was there, that he was not alone in the dark. "Thank you," he whispered. Then his eyes closed again, and he passed out against her muddy, rain-soaked uniform. It was only then that Aria looked up and saw them. 2 men stood 15 feet away, both wearing black suits that cost more than everything she owned. Both carrying guns visible at their sides. Carlo and Nino, she had seen them around the mansion, always moving like shadows, always watching. They were watching now. They had watched the entire seizure. They had watched her drop to her knees in the mud. They had watched her save this boy's life. Carlo's hand was already moving to a radio clipped at his chest. His voice was low, professional, urgent. "Boss, you need to come home. Now." The rain intensified. It fell harder, colder, like the sky was weeping. Aria did not move. She kept her hand on Noah's shoulder, feeling his chest rise and fall, the rhythm of life. She was afraid. More afraid than she had been since the fire. Because she had just broken the first law of invisibility. She had been seen. The black SUV pulled up to the garden entrance in less than 4 minutes. Aria counted them. For minutes that felt like an eternity compressed into moments. The door opened. A man stepped out into the rain. Dominic Moretti was not what she expected, though she was not sure what she had expected. Tall, yes. Broad-shouldered, yes. Mid-40s with dark hair silvered at the temples. But what struck her was the precision of him. Every movement controlled. Every gesture deliberate. Like a general surveying a battlefield. His suit was expensive Italian wool, now soaked through. His shoes cost more than her monthly rent. But none of that mattered because his face had cracked open like the sky in a lightning strike. He saw his son in the arms of a maid he had never seen before. A woman in a uniform stained with mud and rain. A woman who was not supposed to exist in the world above stairs. Dominic knelt beside them. He was fast. He checked Noah's pulse at the neck, his wrist, the side of his face. His hands were shaking. Arya had never seen a powerful man's hands shake before. He was seizing, Arya said quietly. Her voice sounded small, like it was coming from very far away. I could not leave him alone. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I know I should not have. What is your name? Dominic asked. Arya. Arya Bennett. I cleaned the. You saved him, Dominic said. His voice was deep and solid like an oath. He lifted Noah carefully, cradling him against his chest like the boy was made of glass. You saved my son. He turned and walked back toward the mansion. Carlo and Nino exchanged a look neither had seen in 15 years, shock, maybe. Recognition that something had shifted. That the man who had built an empire on calculated coldness had just thanked a maid for saving his son. Arya was left kneeling in the rain. Her uniform was soaked. Her hands were covered in mud. The wheelchair lay on its side where it had tipped, mocking and still. She did not know that Catherine Mercer had been watching from the second-floor window. That the moment Arya's hands touched Noah, Catherine's perfectly manicured fingers had tightened into fists. That a calculation had begun in Catherine's cold, precise mind, how to remove this threat. How to ensure that Dominic's attention returned to the business, to the money, to the only things that truly mattered. Catherine Mercer managed every dollar that flowed through the Moretti estate. Every transaction. Every account. Every secret. And she had just realized that an invisible maid had become very, very visible. That evening, Arya arrived for her shift expecting to be fired. Expecting to be told she had overstepped, had broken protocol, had dared to touch what did not belong to her. She parked her car, a 2003 Honda Civic with a check engine light that had been on for 3 years, and walked to the servant's entrance with her heart in her throat. Carlo was waiting. He was a tall man with a scar running from his left eye to his jawline, a map of violence that made him look perpetually angry even when his expression was neutral. He nodded to her. The boss wants to see you, he said. Upstairs. Arya's blood went cold. Upstairs meant she was not a maid anymore. Upstairs meant she had moved into a different category. Dangerous. Visible. Vulnerable to judgment. She followed Carlo through corridors she had cleaned 100 times but never traveled as a person. The staff stairs gave way to the main staircase. The wooden floors became marble. The air itself seemed to change, to grow thinner, harder to breathe. Dominic's study was exactly what she had imagined the room of a dangerous man should be. Dark wood paneling. Leather chairs that probably cost more than her car. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, rain streaming down the glass like tears. A desk that was less furniture than a statement of power. And Dominic behind it, his jacket removed, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, cigar smoke curling near the ceiling like a ghost that refused to leave. Nino stood guard at the door. Neither man moved. Dominic gestured to the chair in front of his desk. Arya Saturday. Her hands folded in her lap. She kept her eyes down. What is your name? Dominic asked. Arya Bennett. You have children. It was not a question. She nodded. 2, she said quietly. A daughter and a son. Maya is 8. Lucas is 5. Where are they now? A shelter on Broad Street. We lost our apartment in a fire 6 weeks ago. Dominic opened a drawer in his desk. He removed an envelope. It was thick. He slid it across the desk toward her. Arya opened it carefully. Her hands began to shake immediately. $10,000 in cash. More money than she had ever held. More than she had earned in 3 years of double shifts and stolen scraps. She pushed it back. "I cannot take this," she said. "You saved my son's life," Dominic said. "I did what anyone would do." "No." His voice hardened. "You did what no one else did. My guards watched for 90 seconds before calling me. You acted in 5. Arya's voice broke. "Why would you help me? I am nobody." Dominic leaned forward. She could smell the cigar smoke, the expensive cologne, something underneath that was just him. Power. Exhaustion. Grief so old it had calcified into something harder than stone. "My son has been paralyzed for 3 years," he said. 72 doctors. 49 specialists. Not one of them looked at him the way you did yesterday. Like he was a person. Not a diagnosis. Not a burden. A person. He slid the envelope forward again. "I am offering you a position," Dominic continued. "Noah's daytime companion. $20 an hour. Housing in the guest cottage. Your children can live on the estate. School runs. Food. Everything they need." Arya could not speak. The words would not come. She had spent 6 weeks terrified of losing even the invisible maid job. Now she was being offered a future. A real one. "I am just a maid," she whispered. "You are the woman who saved my son." 3 weeks passed like a season changing. Arya brought Noah to the library each morning. She read to him from books he chose, science fiction, fantasy, mysteries. She taught him card games. She showed him how to braid her own hair and then tried, laughing at her clumsy fingers, while Noah gave her instructions from his wheelchair. One afternoon, while they were playing chess, Noah looked up at her with sudden clarity and said, "Mama Arya." He was not asking a question. He was testing it. Like a word in a language he was learning. Arya felt something break open inside her chest. She looked away for a moment, blinking hard. When she looked back, Noah was watching her with those dark eyes that had looked at her with such trust in the rain. "Yes," she said softly. "Yes, I am here." But what changed everything was Catherine Mercer. Arya brought Noah to the main dining room for lunch on a Tuesday. Catherine sat at the head of the table in a white suit that probably cost more than Arya's entire wardrobe, diamonds cold on her wrists, reviewing household accounts with the intensity of a general preparing for war. She looked up at Arya with ice in her eyes. "You are the new maid," Catherine said. "I am Noah's companion," Arya replied quietly. "Companions do not eat at this table." Arya helped Noah into his chair. She did not respond to Catherine. She did not engage. Invisibility was safer. But Catherine was not finished. "I manage this household's finances," she continued, her voice dropping into something dangerous. "Every dollar. Every expense. I am watching you. I am always watching." That night, whispers began. The housekeepers left Arya's meals cold on the kitchen counter. The gardener told her that her children could no longer play outside. A new maid spread rumors through the staff. Arya was stealing silverware. Arya was seducing the boss. Arya was a con artist exploiting a grieving man. Arya endured in silence. She had learned silence long before this mansion. Then Vincent arrived. He came on a Thursday evening in a black sports car that was too loud and too expensive. He was late 20s, handsome in a way that made your skin crawl, dressed in designer clothes that could not hide the cruelty around his eyes. He was Dominic's nephew, someone whispered. He worked in the family business. Arya was walking Noah through the garden at dusk, the November sun bleeding red across the horizon. The sports car pulled up to the gravel pathway. Vincent stepped out with a smile that looked like a knife. "You must be the miracle worker," he said. "I am Arya. I know who you are." He circled her slowly, his eyes moving across her face like he was assessing merchandise. "I know everything about you. The apartment fire on 15th Street. The $47,000 in medical debt from your son's emergency room visit. The job at the diner you lost because you missed a shift. Aria's blood went still. I know your daughter's school. Jefferson Elementary. 3rd grade. Lunch period is from 12:15 to 12:45. I know your son attends Riverside Daycare. He likes the playground. He is very small for 5 years old, isn't he? Do not, Aria's voice was shaking now. Do not what? Vincent leaned close. His cologne was suffocating. His voice dropped to something that was not a whisper because whispers had intention. This was just venom. You have been stealing from my uncle. Stealing his attention. His resources. His time. I think you are an opportunist. And I think you're going to help me. Help you with what? Information. What he does. Who he meets. Where he keeps his money. Who threatens him. Who he trusts. I would never. Your children are in a shelter system, Vincent continued like she had not spoken. It would be very easy to report that their mother is living with a known criminal. Child Services has such strict guidelines. Foster care is a terrible place, Aria. I have heard the stories. He pulled back, smiling. The rain started then, soft at first, then harder. I will be in touch, he said. And Aria? Remember that I am always watching too. He drove away, his engine loud, arrogant, certain. Aria stood frozen in the rain. She had thought she was finally safe. She had thought her children were finally safe. She had been so naive. That night, she found Dominic in the garden. She had not meant to. She was walking, just walking, trying to think, trying to breathe. The rain had intensified into a downpour. The sky was so dark it looked like it might never be light again. Dominic stood at the garden fountain, smoking, staring at nothing. He turned when he heard her footsteps on the wet stone. What happened? He asked. She could not speak. She could not tell him. Not yet. Not when she did not know if speaking would make it better or destroy everything. But Dominic was already moving toward her, already reaching out, already treating her like she was something precious that might break. 3 in the morning. The clock on the cottage wall reads 3:53. Aria Bennett sits on the edge of the guest bed, her small frame lost in the darkness, rain pounding the glass so hard it sounds like the world is breaking apart. The cold seeps through the walls, through the ancient stone, through her skin and into her bones. Her hands shake as she holds her phone. The screen glows with the text Vincent sent an hour ago, tomorrow. Bring me his schedule or your kids disappear. She reads it again. And again. The words do not change. The threat does not soften. Tomorrow. That is all she has left. $47,000 in debt. $10,000 that Dominic gave her, but it sits in an account she is terrified to touch because using it feels like admitting she belongs here, like stealing something precious that was never meant for someone like her. Her old life had $78 in the bottom of a purse. Now she has more money than she has ever seen and it is still not enough. It is never enough. Her mind spirals. Drive. Just take Maya and Lucas and drive until the gas runs out and the highway ends at the ocean and they can disappear into the water like they were never here. Walk into the rain. Keep walking. Never come back. They are better off without her. Everyone is better off without her. She stands. Her coat hangs on the back of the cottage door. She reaches for it, her fingers brushing the worn fabric, when something stops her. A light. Through the window, across the garden, in the main house. Noah's bedroom window glows soft and pale. The boy is awake. Probably scared. Probably lying in the dark, waiting for someone to come, the way children wait when the world feels too big and too dangerous. She lets her hand fall. That one thought, he needs me, roots her to the floor like a blade through the earth. She takes off her coat. She will not run. Not tonight. Not when Noah is awake and alone. Not when Maya and Lucas are sleeping safe upstairs and she is the only thing standing between them and the dark. She goes to him. The next morning breaks grey and cold. The staff has been called to the main hall. Every face, every uniform, every carefully maintained expression turned toward the center of the room where Catherine Mercer stands like a general surveying a battlefield. Her hair is perfect. Her diamonds catch the light. She wears the smile of someone who has already won. I called you here because we have a serious theft to address, Catherine says. Her voice is honey and venom. Last night, a bracelet went missing from my jewelry safe. A Cartier piece. $30,000. The air in the room stops moving. Catherine turns slowly. Her eyes find Aria. And I know exactly who took it. Aria's face goes white. She can feel the blood leaving her fingertips, her lips, pooling somewhere in her chest where her heart used to be. I did not take anything, she says. The words come out small. Small like she is small. Small like she has always been small. Catherine produces a piece of paper. A photograph. Aria in Mrs. Mercer's bedroom yesterday, dusting the dresser, her hand near the open safe. I have a witness as well, Catherine continues. She nods to the head housekeeper, a woman named Margaret who has worked in this mansion for 23 years. Margaret steps forward, her face twisted with discomfort. I saw her in Mrs. Mercer's room yesterday afternoon, Margaret says. The lie falls from her mouth like she has practiced it 1,000 times, which she probably has. Catherine paid her. Aria does not need confirmation to know this. I want her arrested, Catherine says to the security chief. Call the police. Right now. The room tilts. Aria's vision narrows to a single point, the door. She could run. She could run right now and they could not stop her and she could be 3 blocks away before anyone. But she does not run. She looks Catherine Mercer in the eye. You are lying, Aria says. Her voice sounds different. Steadier. Like it belongs to someone else, someone stronger. You are lying and you know it. What are you afraid of? What threatens you so much that you need to destroy me? Catherine's perfect smile falters. For half a second, the mask slips. Something raw flashes through her eyes. Rage. Fear. The expression of a woman watching her power crumble. Then the sound of wheels on marble. Noah. The boy wheels himself into the hall, his small frame hunched forward with effort, his eyes blazing with an intensity that silences every voice in the room. He is crying. Tears stream down his face like rain. She did not steal anything, Noah says, his voice shaking with fury. She would never. She saved my life. She held me when I could not breathe. She reads to me when I cannot sleep. She is the only person who treats me like I am not broken. She is more family than any of you. The staff shifts. Uncomfortable. Guilty. The comfortable lie is harder to maintain when a child speaks the truth. Margaret's face crumbles. She tries to speak but nothing comes out. Catherine's hands clench into fists. She opens her mouth to speak, to salvage this, but there is nothing left to say. Her power has cracked like glass. Everyone in the room sees it. Everyone knows that the accusations are false now, not because Aria is innocent, they have always known she is innocent, but because Noah spoke, and a child's honesty cuts through every lie ever constructed by the wealthy and the cruel. Catherine turns and walks out of the hall, her footsteps sharp and quick, the sound of her leaving echoing through the marble like a door slamming on her rain. That night, Aria's phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number, Pier 9 warehouse. Underground level. Midnight. Come alone or I kill both your kids in their sleep. She reads it 3 times. Her hands do not shake anymore. Something in her has solidified. Hardened. She texts back, I will be there. The warehouse is converted now, underground, beneath the docks. The air is thick with cigar smoke so dense it looks like fog. Green felt tables glow under lights the color of money. Stacks of chips. Cash piled like bricks. Armed men in expensive suits standing at the edges like sentries guarding a tomb. This is where the underground poker games happen. Where fortunes are won and lost and blood is treated as casually as currency. Vincent Moretti sits at the center table, drunk, his tie loosened, his face flushed with whiskey and arrogance. He sees Aria and smiles. The smile is all teeth and no warmth. "Did you bring it?" he asks. "His schedule. The information I asked for." "No," Aria says. Vincent's smile disappears. He stands, his chair scraping backward, and moves toward her. His hand reaches out and grabs her arm just above the elbow. His fingers dig in. She feels the bite of his nails through the fabric of her sleeve. "Wrong answer, little spy. You had one job. One simple job. You failed." "I did not fail," Aria says. She jerks her arm away, pulling herself free from his grip with a violence that surprises them both. "I am done being your spy. I am done being afraid. You want to report me to your judge friends? Make your call. Take my children. But I am done letting you control me with threats and fear." Vincent raises his hand. Not to grab. To strike. The hand freezes midair. The warehouse goes absolutely silent. All sound dies. All movement stops. Even the smoke seems to pause its drift. Dominic Moretti stands in the warehouse entrance. Carlo and Nino flank him, their faces carved from stone. Behind them, 10 more men in black suits, their eyes reflecting the green light of the poker tables like predators in the dark. Dominic's voice, when it comes, is not loud. It does not need to be. It is quiet and lethal and final, like the sound a door makes when it closes on someone's last chance. "Step away from her." Vincent laughs. The sound is nervous, cracked at the edges. "Uncle, this is just business. She is just—" "I do not care what she is to you," Dominic says. He walks forward and the men part before him like water. "You threatened my son's caretaker? You threatened children. That is not business. That is a mistake. And it is the last one you will ever make. What happens next is not violence. Violence is too quick. Too easy. Too merciful." Dominic makes a single phone call. His voice is steady as he speaks into the receiver. It is time. He waits. He listens. He ends the call. Within 40 minutes, federal agents raid Vincent's penthouse on the east side. They find the records Dominic has been collecting for months. Racketeering. Extortion. Drug trafficking running through 3 states. They find the offshore accounts. The blackmail files. The photographs. Vincent is arrested at 4:13 in the morning in his penthouse suite, dragged from his bed by agents in black jackets, handcuffs clicking shut around his wrists with a sound like a lock. He collapses into sobs, his arrogance shattered like glass, his body trembling like a wounded animal in a cage. He begs for mercy. He begs for his uncle's forgiveness. He begs for his freedom. Nobody listens. Carlo leans close to Aria as Vincent is escorted away. His voice is barely a whisper. 40 years. Federal prison. No parole. No early release. He will be 84 years old before he sees the sun again. The next morning comes with fog rolling off the Delaware River. Catherine Mercer is brought to the study at dawn. Dominic sits behind his desk, documents spread before him like cards in a hand he has already won. "Embezzlement," he says, sliding the first stack across the mahogany. 3 years. $270,000 skimmed from household accounts using false invoices and forged signatures. Catherine's face drains of color. "That is a lie. I can explain. I have sent everything to the FBI," Dominic continues. They are processing the evidence now. You will be arrested within the hour. Catherine tries to speak. Nothing comes out. Her mouth opens and closes like a fish removed from water, gasping for oxygen that no longer exists in her world. The arrest happens at 6:13 in the morning. Photographers are somehow waiting at the gate. Dominic made certain they would be. Catherine Mercer is led out of the mansion in handcuffs, her designer suit wrinkled, her composure shattered, her face captured in high definition for every newspaper and news website in Pennsylvania. The society pages that once celebrated her now crucify her. The charities that once courted her now erase her name from their donor rolls. She is nobody now. Just as she tried to make Aria nobody. Aria watches from Noah's window. The boy sits beside her in his wheelchair, his hand resting on her shoulder, both of them silent as they watch justice unfold across the circular driveway below. Rain begins to fall again. Soft rain. The kind that washes things clean. It is over, Noah whispers. Aria reaches up and places her hand over his. Yes, she says. It is finally over. The rain stopped for the first time in 37 days. Aria Bennett stood in the study of the Moretti mansion, her hand trembling as she held the leather folder Dominic had just placed before her. The early morning light filtered through heavy curtains, casting everything in shades of grey and gold. Outside, Philadelphia was waking up. Sirens in the distance. The distant rumble of delivery trucks. The world moving forward, indifferent to what had just been destroyed. Dominic sat behind his desk, his jaw tight, his dark eyes carrying something Aria had never seen before. Not anger. Not calculation. Vulnerability. Raw, terrible vulnerability, like watching a fortress crumble in real time. I need to tell you everything, he said. His voice was barely steady. Like someone speaking through water, each word requiring effort that cost him something. Not as the man you know. But as the man I was. The man I have been trying not to be. Aria opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Old ones. Dominic standing with another man who shared his features, their father between them, all three in black suits at what looked like a funeral. A wedding photo. Dominic younger, lean, dangerous. A newspaper clipping from 15 years ago, explosion at warehousing facility. 3 dead. My brother was named Vincent, Dominic continued. His hands lay flat on the mahogany desk, as if they might betray him if given the chance to move. Not Vincent Castellano who came to this house. My brother, my blood brother, was nothing like the man who threatened you. He paused. The silence stretched like a living thing between them. 5 years ago, Vincent made a choice. The Castellano family offered him $2 million to hand me everything. Our roots. Our contacts. Our people. Where we stored shipments. Where we kept money. Everything a rival family would need to destroy me. Dominic's voice dropped lower. He took the money and he gave them everything. Aria felt her chest tighten. She understood now why there had been raids, why Dominic had seemed older the past few weeks, as if decades were pressing down on his shoulders. What did you do? She asked. I chose survival over mercy. I had him taken to the very people he had betrayed me to. The Castellanos did to him what betrayal deserves in our world. I will never see him again. I will never know if he suffered. I will never know if at the end he regretted what he had done. I only know I am the reason he is gone. Dominic looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. Like they were weapons he had finally set down. My son was in the car the night they retaliated. They did not know it was me driving. They only knew my car, my route, my weakness. I had taken Noah to see my mother in the hospital. She was dying. She needed to see him. His voice fractured like thin ice. The crash that paralyzed him. The wheelchair he will sit in for the rest of his life. That was my fault. My choices. My war. Aria moved without thinking. She reached across the desk and placed her hand over his. His skin was warm. Solid. Real. You protected him the only way you knew how, she said quietly. I failed him. Dominic turned his hand over, so their palms pressed together. Until you. He slid the folder across the desk. Aria looked inside and her breath caught. Deed of transfer, a brownstone in Society Hill, 3 stories, brick, historic, hers. A trust fund document. Education accounts for Maya and Lucas, each with $230,000. The foreclosure notice, her foreclosure notice, stamped across in red letters, paid in full. You saved my son, Dominic said. You found him in the garden when he could not breathe. You called for help when anyone else would have walked away. You gave him back to me. You gave him back to himself. Let me save your family. Aria felt the tears come then. Not the quiet ones. The kind that break you open completely, that leave nothing hidden. She wept for every night she had counted pennies. Every meal she had skipped so her children could eat. Every moment she had believed she was nobody, and everyone in the world agreed. Why me? She whispered. Dominic stood and came around the desk. He took both her hands. His thumbs traced the calluses on her palms, marks of every shift, every hard surface she had scrubbed, every hour of invisible work. Because when you found Noah in that garden, you did not see a mafia boss's son. You did not think about who his father was or what his family could offer you. You saw a child who needed help. That is who you are. That is the woman I trust with my son. That is the woman I trust with my life. The transformation came like spring breaking through winter. 3 days later, Maya and Lucas ran through the rooms of the brownstone, their voices lifting to the high ceilings, echoing off hardwood floors that had not seen children in 40 years. Lucas shouted from the kitchen that there was a window over the sink and he could see the street. Maya found the library and called for Aria to see the window seat, already imagining where her dolls would sit. Aria enrolled them in the private school 2 blocks away. The one with the small classes and the kind teachers and the playground with swings that looked like they had never been sat in by desperate children. She paid the first semester in full, watching the administrator's face as she signed papers, no longer invisible. She continued at the mansion, but not as a maid. Not anymore. Dominic introduced her to the household as someone special, someone essential, and Carlo and Nino exchanged glances that said they understood immediately. She was family now. That was enough. Noah started calling her Mama Aria in front of everyone at dinner, and Aria did not correct him. Dominic did not correct him. The boy's voice carried such certainty, such trust, that the word became the truth of it. Mama Aria helped him with physical therapy. Mama Aria read to him before bed. Mama Aria was there when he woke from nightmares, her hand steady and sure on his shoulder. One evening, Aria found Dominic in the library, standing at the window where rain was finally beginning to fall again, soft rain, the kind that refreshes instead of destroys. She sat beside him on the leather sofa, and for a long time neither of them spoke. Thank you, she finally said. For everything. Dominic looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Like she had just emerged from water and was becoming real in front of him. You gave me my son back, he said. Not just alive, but truly back. You taught him how to be happy again. You taught him that the world contains people like you. People who are brave. People who care when they have nothing to gain. You gave me the greatest gift a man can receive. It is not a debt, Aria said. The words came from somewhere deep inside her, somewhere that had finally learned to speak. It is family. The word hung between them like a promise. Dominic reached for her hand. She did not pull away. His fingers closed around hers, and in that moment, the whole structure of the world shifted on its axis. The powerful man and the invisible maid. The untouchable criminal and the woman with nothing. But none of those categories mattered anymore. They had burned away like paper in a fire, leaving only 2 people who had saved each other. 6 months later, Philadelphia blazed with spring. Cherry blossoms fell like snow in the mansion garden. The branches of the old oak tree swayed in a warm breeze that carried the smell of new growth, of the world turning green again. Dominic and Aria stood watching from the terrace, his arm wrapped around her waist, her head resting against his shoulder. Noah played on the lawn with Maya and Lucas, the boy's wheelchair moving in wide circles as Lucas pushed him, both of them laughing. Not the careful laughter of people afraid to break something precious. The real laughter of children who believe in tomorrow. Noah's legs had never regained feeling, and the doctors said they never would. But something else had healed inside him. Something that had nothing to do with nerves and everything to do with knowing he was loved beyond measure. I thought losing everything in that fire was the end of my story, Aria said. Her voice carried the weight of truth earned through suffering. But it was the beginning. I learned that the darkest moments can lead to the brightest transformations. That courage is not the absence of fear, but acting despite it. That family is not about blood running through your veins. It is about who shows up when you are broken. On the mantel inside, the crumpled foreclosure notice sat in a frame, a reminder of how far she had come. Beside it, the photograph from the fire, the one she had saved, her two children's faces emerging from ash and smoke. But now it was surrounded by new pictures. Aria and Dominic. Noah laughing in his wheelchair. All of them together. A family built not on tradition or blood, but on love strong enough to transform everything it touched. Noah called from the garden, his voice carrying across the spring air. "Mama! Papa! Come play!" Dominic pulled Aria close and whispered against her hair, "You saved us all." They joined the children, the four of them together under the blossoming trees, while the city of Philadelphia moved on around them, indifferent and unchanged except for the fact that in one mansion, in one small corner of the world, a family had been born from ruins. The sun broke through the clouds. Warm. Golden. Certain. If this story touched your heart, if you felt it in the place where you store your deepest hopes, please drop a like and share it with someone who desperately needs to believe in second chances. Subscribe to this channel because tomorrow we have another story that will change the way you see the world. And remember this, always remember this, you are never too broken to be loved. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only love can do that. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We wish you good health, joy in your days, and peace that runs deeper than any storm. We will see you again in the next video. Goodbye.